President Bashar al-Assad sends a message to Pope Francis. Syrian Arab army units eliminate dozens of terrorists in several areas and achieve new field progress. According to CNN, the West supports terrorism in Syria and fears repercussions. And in Turkey, demonstrations continue calling on Erdogan to step down. Good afternoon. Welcome to News Bulletin. I'm Dania Nizam. President Bashar al-Assad sent a message to Pope Francis conveyed by Minister of State Joseph Swade during his meeting with the Pope's Secretary of State, Archbishop Pietro Parolin. In the message, President al-Assad expressed the Syrian people and leadership's appreciation of the stances of His Holiness regarding the crisis in Syria, highlighting that the crisis will be solved through national dialogue among the Syrians and under a Syrian leadership without foreign intervention, as to enable the Syrians to determine their future and leadership through ballots. The message stressed Syrian government's readiness to participate in the International Conference on Syria, Geneva II, highlighting that combating terrorism that is targeting citizens is a decisive factor in making any peaceful solution to the crisis a success. The message also highlighted that stopping terrorism requires having the countries which are involved in supporting the armed terrorist groups to stop providing any sort of military, logistic or training support, noting that this support was provided by some of Syria's neighbors and other known countries in the Middle East and abroad. President al-Assad stressed the Syrian government's keenness on carrying out its constitutional duty of protecting its citizens, regardless of their race and religion, from the crimes of the Takfiri groups that target their homes, schools and places of worship with terrorist bombings or arbitrary shelling. The Syrian Arab army units destroyed terrorist hideouts and gatherings in Douma in Damascus countryside, killing scores of them. Some of the killed terrorists are non-Syrians belonging to the so-called Islam Battalion. The bodies of the terrorists Mehdi al-Unayzi, Salim al-Shumari, Ayad al-Fahd, Bushar Tandar, Abdullah al-Baqar, Saif al-Darawni and Awaid al-Mish'al were identified among the killed terrorists. After leaving heinous crimes in Syria, Iraq, Yemen and Libya, as well as in many other countries in the region, terrorism seems to pose an inevitable threat to the West. The CNN revealed that indicators are clear on the birth of a new al-Qaeda in Europe, as several confessions and statements by the terrorist affiliated to al-Qaeda were published. The American Abu Dujana, who was one of those terrorists from the so-called Islamic State of Iraq and the Levant, said in an interview with the CNN that the banner of "There is no God but Allah," which is of al-Qaeda, will be on top of all parliaments around the globe. "We will establish the law of God in every corner of the world, in Europe, the US, Australia, New Zealand, Asia and Africa." Abu Dujana said. The CNN pointed out that the interview was made with Abu Dujana before he accidentally shot and killed himself. However, during the interview, Abu Dujana asserted his intention, along with the terrorists who were with him, to kill anyone who stands in his way by saying, "We will give our souls for al-jihad in order to enter heaven. We will face all the infidels in the West and everywhere. We will fight anyone who stands in the way of establishing the law of God." According to the CNN, after more than 1,000 days of the war on Syria, the West has finally realized the fact that those who fight in Syria are terrorist groups, some of which are enlisted on the blacklist of terrorism. CNN also refers to several cases where the terrorist groups had committed heinous crimes against the innocent people in Syria, including the case of a man who was interviewed in al-Raqqa and who recounted how he was tortured so badly by individuals belonging to the so-called Islamic State in Iraq and the Levant that the CNN showed photos of the red and blue patches on his body, revealing the severity of torture received at the hands of the terrorists. UN Secretary-General Ban Ki-moon stressed that there is progress in the operation of destroying the chemical weapons of Syria, despite a delay in moving the chemical weapons out of the country. The joint mission of the Organization for the Prohibition of Chemical Weapons, OPCW, and the UN said in a statement that there will be a limited delay in the transport of the first tranche of the chemical materials from Syria, despite the intensive work with the Syrian government. These had been anticipated to be removed by December 31st. The joint mission pointed out that a number of incidental factors such as the general security situation and the bad weather may affect the limited timetable. On several occasions, the UN and the OPCW stressed Syria's full cooperation with them in eliminating the chemical weapons. The death toll of the explosion that hit the railway station building in Volgograd in southern Russia rose to 18 dead and 40 wounded. The initial reports showed that a suicidal carried out the explosion. As the corruption scandal rocked Erdogan's government, Erdogan threatened the prosecution and the Attorney General in case they continued their investigation over corruption and bribery. Erdogan accused the board of judges and the prosecutors of collaborating against him and against his government. Meanwhile, as successive media reports continued revealing the involvement of Erdogan's government in endless corruption, sources confirmed that Bilal Erdogan, Prime Minister Erdogan's son, fled to Georgia, as an arrest warrant against him had been issued, within the framework of the corruption scandal. In response to the tyranny of Erdogan, the leader of the opposition Republican People's Party, Kemal Kılıçdaroğlu, said that Erdogan is the head of a corrupt gang, and he covers that corruption. Meanwhile, mass demonstrations continued in major Turkish cities, especially in Istanbul and Ankara, demanding the resignation of Erdogan. As usual, Erdogan's security forces faced the demonstrations with repression, seriously wounding a reporter during a demonstration in Istanbul, and also the correspondent of Aydınlık newspaper was beaten before being arrested by the Turkish police. In addition to the arrest along with 70 other demonstrators. With this, we end the news for today. Thank you for watching us. For more details about Syria and the region, and to view this bulletin again, you can always visit our website in English, syriaonline.sy. After the break, it's Vani with our economic and business news. God bless you and long live Syria.
Good afternoon. The People's Assembly headed by Muhammad Jihad al-Laham approved a law for exempting the subscribers in the General Establishment for Social Insurance from the interest and any additional fines imposed on delay in paying. The law came due to the current situation as part of the contribution by the General Establishment for Social Insurance in pushing the production process forward. It will also increase the establishment's revenues. Minister of Labor Dr. Hassan Hijazi said that the law aims at encouraging the businessmen to pay their commitments, a matter that will give the General Establishment some cash. Prime Minister Wael al-Halaqi said that the strategic and deeply rooted Syrian-Iranian relations require increasing cooperation, integration and coordination to mobilize capabilities of resistance access in confrontation of challenges facing the region. Premier al-Halaqi's remarks came during receiving Secretary of the Syrian-Iranian Economic Relations Committee, Rustam Qasimi. Ministry of Water Resources and International Labour Organization have signed a work plan that aims at assessing the current situation of freshwater and sanitation sector. Minister of Water Resources has said that the ministry aims to alleviate consequences of the current crisis on the Syrians and to overcome the economic sanctions imposed on Syria. For her part, representative of International Labour Organization for Combating Famine said that the organization's aim is to secure fresh water for the Syrian citizens, in addition to securing foodstuff, food security, sanitation, and education. Minister of Internal Trade and Protecting Good Consumer inaugurated the Umayyad Trade Complex in Damascus after it was rehabilitated and modernized in order to address the citizens' needs. Mr. Amin asserted that the system called barcode would be applied in the complex. He pointed out that the prices inside the complex are 30% less than those in the local market. 10,000 tons of sugar were provided by the establishment of marketing and storage, said the manager of the customer center, after being late in distributing this material to citizens, noting that rice is available in the country's stores with acceptable prices as it will be imported from Latakia port. On the other hand, the manager asserted that the establishment seeks to increase its selling centers in the popular places through making removable kiosks as positive interference in the markets to help making prices acceptable. Director of the branch of the General Company of Bakeries in Idlib province said that more quantities of flour have been allocated for every bakery in the province, amounting to 300 kilograms daily to address the increasing demand for bread. He pointed out that all the 14 private bakeries in the city have been supplied with more quantities of flour for 15 days to secure the consumers' daily need of bread. Public banks are expected to gradually re-grant loans on condition that each bank would grant loans at time to be followed by another bank, but not less than 3 months later. Noteworthy is that the amount of loaned money would not exceed 300 Syrian pounds. The real estate bank has said that it was about to start rescheduling loans granted to borrowers as per next year. The bank would either reschedule the loans to be paid by the borrowers throughout a whole period of time, starting from the last payment the borrower paid to the bank, plus paying the interest that are either for additional 10 or 15 years in lines of the regulations of loaning with no exemptions whatsoever. The Ministry of Agriculture said that it has set a complete plan for developing olive trees production. The Agriculture Minister's counselor pointed out that applying this plan will start by the beginning of the new year, indicating that the ministry is cooperating with the agricultural scientific authorities and the agricultural research centers in order to ensure the plan's success, whereas the plan includes the biological control of pests that affect olive trees, in addition to the development of the genetic varieties and the fertilizing ways. Director of Al-Ma'arrajins in Idlib has said that receiving cotton for this year's season has been concluded, adding that the quantities of cotton received has amounted to about 800 tons. He pointed out that 4,500 tons of cotton treated last year were still available. The manager of agriculture and marketing stressed that the citrus amount marketed through borders to Iraq reached 90,000 tons. While there are serious attempts to export another 20,000 tons to Russia. The Ministry of Agriculture also estimated producing citrus with over 1 million tons this season, as it called its affiliates to market these crops. The total volume of Iran's exported goods have amounted to $29 billion. Half of them were gas and oil. China came first in terms of Iran's trade partners. Statistics released by the Iranian official news agency have indicated that the volume of Iran's external trade have amounted to more than $29 billion during the last 9 months. With this, we conclude our news. Thank you for watching and goodbye.